Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Pixel, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you 5 tips on getting better at building or improving the building process on Roblox. The first tip I'm going to show you is the snap to grid feature, which if you go to the model tab at the top, there is this box here that has the rotate and move. Make sure that these are checked, and these are basically the increments that you move and rotate a part. The move also represents how much you scale a part as well. So if I go ahead and insert a part using the part button, when I drag it around, it is moving on a 1 by 1 grid because we have one stud, which this plugin that I'm using allows me to change my base plate to this cool like grid thing, but there is a grid feature. If you go to view, show grid, it'll show you, let me actually get rid of this so you can see. There is these grid lines throughout your world, and it'll show you these are about 4 studs wide. That is how the sizing works on Roblox. If you look here in the properties window, we have 4 for the X, 1 for the Y, and 4 for the Z. But when you're building, some people like to turn it off. I don't recommend that because it like, why would you? No. Some people like to build with it because it's easier to do details and stuff, but I recommend to do an actual grid because changing the move off, it allows you to move it freely on the tiniest possible, which is 0.05, which, I mean, it's rare that you'll need to do that unless you're doing fine details or modeling, something like that. But I recommend to stick to 1 stud when you're working on buildings and stuff. So, for example, if I was building a house and I was doing the floor and the walls, I would keep it 1 or 2 studs, whatever you want. But when you're working on the inside of your house, it's best to lower it to something like 0.5 or 0.25. Or you can do 0.2 and go up like that. Some people prefer it. Some people like 0.1, 2. And it makes it a lot easier. You can still change some things like the floor if you want. Things that are, because a stud is too fat for some things. Like if you were making a door and you wanted to have a door frame, but you wanted it to be like wider than the actual door, it's too big. It doesn't look right and it won't fit in your game. So you put this down to like 0.25 and you can resize this so it's not that much bigger, but it is still a lot bigger than the door. The same thing goes for the move tool. You can just click on the move tool and drag apart, it'll do it as well. But I very much recommend sticking to any type of increment. I just switch between 0.25 and 1 stud when I'm building. You can do whatever you like, experiment with them, find something that you like. You don't have to do quarter intervals like I'm doing, like 0.25, 0.5. You can do just 0.2, anything you want, just experiment with it, and it'll help you tremendously when you're building. The second tip is learning the hotkeys for Roblox Studio. The hotkeys are very important because it allows you to build faster. So instead of clicking on a part, going up here, moving it, let me just move that there, then resizing it, you can speed up the process by just, let me move this away. You can press Ctrl 2 to move it, and then Ctrl 3 to resize. That is how I switch between the tools so easily when you, if you see in any of my building videos. The hotkeys for the tools are Ctrl 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there's a lot of other ones. You can set your own by going to File, Advanced, and Customize Shortcuts. It'll show you all the shortcuts here as well. Such as duplicating a part, which is Ctrl D. And it'll duplicate a part like that. Pressing R, Control and R, rotates a part on its axis, which its axis by default is just the origin or the middle section of the part. It'll rotate it in place, and pressing T will rotate it the other direction. So that is a way to do that instead of using the rotate tool. There is also the ability to select a part that's in a model. So if there's a model and you hold Alt, I'm not sure what it is on Mac because I do not have one, but I would assume Fin, is that what it is? I'm not sure. But if you hold Alt, you're able to select a part inside of a model. This is really helpful for models and stuff, so you don't have to ungroup it and then regroup it. Also, here's another thing that I learned recently is if you go to the resize and hold Control, you can resize on both sides. This is super handy for building as well. Some other shortcuts that you might need is Control G to group a model. Control U is to ungroup. There is also a shortcut called F, which teleports your camera to that object. So if you somehow are over here and you want to teleport to a part, you could just click on the part, press F, and you'll be able to move closer to that object, so you don't have to slowly move across the workspace window to find it. The next step I'm going to show you is to turn off your collisions. Here in the Home tab and Model tab, there is a collisions button, and by default it is highlighted, so when you move a part, it will like bump into another part, and if you try to push it harder, it'll just teleport to the other side. That isn't helpful, I don't think, at all. It's probably a useless feature in my opinion. I've never had it on for anything. I've always had it off, probably since I started building. But I recommend turning it off so that your parts they go a little bit transparent as you drag it, so you know that it's like working, I guess. And you can put it inside of other parts. It makes building a lot easier. So you can have a part like that. The next tip is to get plugins. Plugins are so helpful, especially with building. I have a ton equipped right now. Some of them are for building and some of them are not. I have these tools here, which I will link all of the plugins that I recommend in the description. These ones here are very important for resizing stuff. I'll show you how they work actually. If I were to rotate a part and put it next to it like this, I would be able to use either gap fill, which gap fill fills in the gap by adding another part, or you can use resize align to resize the parts to each other like that. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does. You might have to play around with the settings like that, so you can extend it up to each other, then use gap fill, fill it in like that. You can change the settings, so it makes your building a lot easier, so you don't have to do it by hand. Then I also have this quick build plugin, which allows me to insert parts very easily into my window where my camera is located at. It's very helpful. And then there's also the ability to put plugin buttons up here on your little quick menu bar. It's called quick access toolbar. That's what it's called. If you hit this button right here, there is the customize at the bottom, and let me resize this so you guys can see. You can search up the name. So if I wanted to search part, there is this part here, and I would press add, and then you move it up the list, and here's all the ones that are selected. And once you hit OK, they would appear here, so I'm able to insert a part without going to this plugin window, and it's a lot easier to do that. I also have Studio Build Suite, which is like a building plugin similar to F3X, which is another one. I don't use that one. I'm not very fond of it, but you can use that one as well. It just allows you to do a couple extra stuff. For example, as you can see, if I do my axis like this, it's going to do it on X and Y, and it's moving the part like this. But if we wanted to move it on its local axis, then we can use this option and it'll move it diagonally like that. That is also very helpful. Yeah, other than that, I think that's all that is for that tip. Remember, there is plugins in the description. I don't think I have a tutorial out for installing plugins, but it's very simple. I might do a video on it in the future, but they're very handy. I very much recommend using them and looking through the plugin gallery. I'll link that in the description as well. And on to our last tip. My last tip is just to maintain motivation. If you're building or scripting for long periods of time, you can get burnout, and it's not very good. You'll get demotivated and probably lose interest in the project entirely. So I recommend doing something, taking breaks, getting food, hydrating yourself, listening to music, also looking at reference images. It'll kind of help you so you don't get frustrated coming up with ideas. You can just use a reference image to give you those ideas. But I think it's one of the most important tips on this list is keeping your motivation up, and that applies for scripting as well, because if you don't have motivation to do anything, you're not going to get anything accomplished. So I hope that these tips helped you. I know that they helped me throughout the years when I was learning how to build and script. If you've already been doing it for a while and you already know these tips, I guess maybe you might have learned a new tip, maybe not. You know, every time I watch a new video like one of these, I always learn something new. So hopefully you did learn something new. If you did learn something new and you like this video, make sure that you give the thumbs up button a click, because I would really appreciate it. And consider subscribing, since it's the best way to support my channel, and it's free. So think about it, I guess. I have a ton of videos lined up and other things planned. I really hope you guys are excited. I'm really happy to be getting back into the YouTube grind. I'll see you guys in the next video.